Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the RotoPros afternoon rundown for the NBA slate tonight on DraftKings in particular. This information is usable for FanDuel, but I don't particularly play FanDuel myself personally, so we look to Justin on that. And this is mainly a DraftKings podcast. But without further ado, check out RotoPros.com. We have a free week trial right now. Things are going well. We're giving out some spring training info where our chat is nice and lively. We are constantly adding to our NASCAR and our golf and our soccer. And there's a lot going on in the DFS world right now. So rotopros.com, check it out. You will not be disappointed. And $15 isn't that much for a month. It's 50 cents a day. Come on, guys. You can play $1 a day and double ups pretty easily, no matter who you are in this world. And probably double your membership with us. I'm not going to get into that, but you get the point. So rotopros.com. Without further ado, let's dig into the point guards tonight. James Harden is one of the best plays out of the entire slate, regardless of position. Chris Paul is out tonight. I think he's just being rested, nothing serious. And they are going against the Suns. The spread isn't very close, but I'm not really going by that in this one. The Suns have been much better in the second half of the season. They've had injuries all year, so this is kind of like the first real time that they've had their studs there and most of the team available. They've made a bunch of trades, everything. So it's a different Suns team than their record may indicate. For that reason, for example, like when they were playing the Warriors a week ago, whatever it was, I wasn't really focused on the Warriors or the Suns because the spread was like 16, 17 points, but I don't think that's going to be the case tonight. I think this will be a good game. The Rockets will probably win because they're playing very well the second half of the year. But the only injury in this one is going to be Tyler Johnson for Phoenix. So it's Tyler and Chris Paul, the only two out. So this should be an interesting game tonight. James Harden will probably be this high scorer on the slate. You heard it here first. Thomas Satoransky go down a little bit. We mentioned in our write-up the Washington Charlotte game tonight is going to be, it's two of the teams you usually look to target on a slate. I'm sure you've noticed that by now if you're watching my podcast more than three quarters of the way through the year, and you're someone who plays DFS enough where you know about this podcast. So I'm sure you've seen plenty of situations where stacks involving the Wizards and Charlotte are two of the higher scoring stacks of the night, and I wouldn't be surprised these two facing off. This is going to be a game you're going to want some exposure to. So Satoransky, he's done well against Charlotte this year, and if you don't want to pay up for Beal, he's relatively easy to fit in there. We have no Dennis Smith tonight, so Emmanuel Mudiay should be getting the start for the Knicks. He presents some good value down at 4,200, but I don't like to play the Knicks very much. David Fizdale doesn't care less about consistency and minutes. They're tanking, so strategy basically goes out the window, and he's just like almost riding off of vibes every night and just like who pisses him off, who's playing well, so, and then matchups, of course, I will say that because this is the NBA. So it is a night to night matchup thing. So for the people out there who kind of look at game logs and go, oh, he played 30 minutes last night and 35 before that. Like, yeah, okay, that matters. But most of the times in the NBA, especially when you're 4/5 of the way through the season, coaches go night to night with that type of stuff. So just bear that in mind. I only mentioned a couple guys at point guard, but there's not that many I'm really interested in. I'm not going to be moving around with it too much. Reggie Jackson's questionable, but if he ends up playing, he's a good value at 4,300. The Lakers are playing the third game in 4 nights, and I wouldn't be surprised if they're pretty tired. LeBron's resting, so that could be a blowout. But also Austin Rivers and Gerald Green's not a point guard, but Austin Rivers for DraftKings could probably get the start for Chris Paul. So he's very nice down at 3,300, 3,100. Okay. Moving over to shooting guard. We mentioned James Harden already. Same thing applies. Bradley Beal would be my second favorite play at this position. Obviously, those are two of the most expensive guys, so that's not rocket science. But, you don't just plug them in because of their price. You plug them in because Bradley Beal and the Wizards are fighting for playoff position. They're jockeying. The East is jockeying, like the 3 through 8 seed for probably until the end of the year. And Bradley Beal is playing, 38, 39, 40 minutes a night, which is pretty absurd. And whether you understand basketball or like basketball or DraftKings or you're new to this or whatever, it's pretty simple. When a guy is playing more minutes than other people, other options to choose, And they're a large part of the offense, such as Bradley Beal, meaning he's either shooting the ball or driving and kicking it or setting other people up because of how good he is and how much attention he draws from the defense. Something called opportunity cost is at play. And when you have a guy who is, he's 9,500, so he's expensive, but, he's playing 40 minutes a night. It's simple as that. That's awesome. That's valuable. Devin Booker, I like him, honestly. He's not someone who's jumping off the charts today, but with CP3 out, there'll be a little bit, Chris Paul's an amazing defender, and there's a good chance Chris Paul would have been guarding him if they ended up playing each other tonight. But Devin Booker will have a little bit of a break with Paul not there. And, whenever Phoenix keeps it close and he's like, Devin Booker is a superstar. So if there's a superstar like James Harden just lighting it up in your face and you're a superstar like Devin Booker, it's in your DNA to just you want to answer back. And if this game stays close like I expect it to, Devin Booker is going to have a big night because Houston is going to put up a lot of points and Phoenix is going to need to as well. Devin Booker should also be handling the point guard a little bit more and facilitating the offense with Tyler Johnson out. Moving down, we mentioned Satoransky earlier, Jeremy Lamb. I'm a fan of Lamb. I'm pretty much a fan of any starter in this Charlotte-Washington game. Trevor Ariza is probably going to be missing out. He's one of their better defenders. So I like Jeremy Lamb tonight. We mentioned Austin Rivers again earlier because of Chris Paul being out. Reggie Jackson's in play. Gerald Green, he's another guy who's going to pick up some usage and some minutes tonight with Chris Paul out. He's 3,300, and I don't think we know for sure yet who's starting for Chris Paul, but odds are it'll be Gerald Green, Austin Rivers, one of those guys. And either way, even if they're not starting, and this I could be wrong about this Phoenix game being close. The Vegas would probably lean towards it not being close. So if I'm wrong and this is a blowout, you better believe Austin Rivers and Gerald Green are probably going to be getting garbage time minutes just because they're not two of the more important people on this team. So Rivers is kind of blowout proof, and Gerald Green should see upwards of 24, 25 minutes tonight, regardless of what happens. Luke Kennard is a guy who I wrote about. The Lakers are tired. I like Kennard. He's not my favorite play in the slate, but I think he's consistent and safe. That's pretty much it. I don't want to spend a million hours on this, so we'll move over to small forward. Giannis is one of the top expensive guy. I consider him a GPP option tonight, being $100 less than Harden, who's got the much better matchup and the much better situation with his fellow all-star super point guard Chris Paul out. There's more usage and scoring to go around for what's already James Harden's team. Ben Simmons is someone who's we'll check up on him and make sure. We'll see if Jimmy Butler's playing. Actually, Jimmy Butler's supposed to play, so I'm not that interested in Ben Simmons. Everyone's back and healthy for the Sixers, so it's difficult to predict who's going to have the best night on any given night. Jeremy Lamb, we just spoke about. Marvin Williams is someone who I wrote up today, and I really am a big fan of his. There's no Zeller still, so they need they're somewhat light on big men. And Marvin's coming off arguably his best game of the season against Washington a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, when they faced off, where he went for over 30 points. So his confidence is going to be high. And Washington is the same team, but probably less well off defensively than they were when they last faced up, with Trevor Ariza being questionable. Eric Gordon is someone who should also see a bump tonight with CP3 out. He's just a little bit more expensive and will be lower owned than the other guys mentioned before. Kyle Kuzma is interesting with LeBron out. He could have a sizable situation depending on how hard he wants to go tonight and how he's feeling. But that's an interesting GPP play if you want to throw him in there with someone who we'll get to later, and Blake Griffin, who we really like tonight, given the matchup, the situation for the Lakers, and some stats that we'll reference soon. Damian Dotson's probably the only Nick that I think is safe, or that's proven to be safe with Fizdale, but his price is starting to creep up, so I don't know how interested I am in him. And then Al-Farouq Aminu and Jake Layman are two people that I have some interest in tonight. Anyone going against New Orleans, another very fast-paced team, a lot of points, but nothing to play for, so defense isn't going to be their number one priority. That's kind of what we look for. Moving on, we're going to go over to the power forward position. Giannis, sure, great, expensive, not my favorite play, but a good GPP option. He's still one of the most talented players in basketball. So, any given night, if he really tries his hardest for whatever reason, he can put up triple doubles with ease. Blake Griffin, I wrote him up in the article today, thanks to my colleague Chris's stat. But the Lakers are on their third game in 4 nights. They have weak knees, weak legs, I'm sure. LeBron's being rested. They have nothing to play for. And Blake Griffin's got some interesting I believe he's averaging like 28, 8, and 6 this year, or in the second half in non-blowout games, which means like 15 points or less is the deciding final score. Detroit's not amazing. So, under normal circumstances, this would probably be a pretty good game against the Lakers. And I still think it will be. Detroit will probably win being at home, but Blake Griffin, 7,700. That's absurdly cheap, especially with that stat that we just referenced and the averages and how he plays when the competition's a little less and the game's more winnable. Julius Randle, if Anthony Davis is out, I like him tonight. Bobby Portis is another guy. He's done well against Charlotte. And with Ariza out, they're going to need him tonight. Other than that, let's see. Is there anyone cheap here? Let me just pull this up while we're going over power forward. Mo Wagner. He's someone who's the Lakers are giving minutes to young guys. So he's 3,400. Him and Jake Layman are probably two of the better punts tonight at the power forward position. Last but not least, we move over to center. Joel Embiid is probably the top play at the center position. You could argue him or Drummond. I prefer Blake Griffin to Drummond tonight. That's why I give Embiid a slight bump. He's back. He's looking good. He's healthy. His minutes will be fine. He should be upwards of 30 minutes tonight. 9,900. So once he gets over 10K, I probably won't play him that much until there's some sort of injury or someone's out for Philly, just because they have a lot of firepower now that everyone's healthy. But so Embiid, against Sacramento too. That's another Philly-Sacramento. It's a cool matchup. They're both playing well. They're both playing fast-paced. It's should be a lot of points in that one. Clint Capella, I like him. I like anybody going up, any center going up against DeAndre Ayton's defense, which is not very good. Plus, he's only 7,300. Capella's had a tough time this year with Harden being out and injuries, and he got injured. So, and then Paul was out, and Capella's playing well though. Houston's playing well. They're getting hot at the right time. And I think he should probably be closer to an 8K player in a matchup like this. So I do like Clint Capella tonight. DeAndre Ayton or Booker, I like, I would run it back with one of them in this Houston game. I think that'll be a high-scoring, good game. So, Ayton and Booker are the focal points. So if it is, in fact, high-scoring and close, as I expect it to be, Ayton at 6,100 shouldn't have too hard of a time. As long as he gets a double-double, and more than like 10, 15 points, should pay that off with ease. Some of the cheaper guys we talked about, or we wrote up, Hernan Gomez today. There's no Cody Zeller. You got to be careful sometimes because Charlotte's not just going to plug him in because he's the backup center. They could run a smaller lineup if Washington runs a smaller lineup. But I have a gut feeling that Thomas Bryant may get the start tonight if Ariza ends up missing the game. So if that is the case, then I would expect to see Hernan Gomez get some more minutes. Mo Wagner, we talked about. Lakers, 3,400. Not the worst option, not the best. Bobby Portis, Blake Griffin, we discussed. Andre Drummond, Nurkic. I don't mind him. I like him more if Anthony Davis is out. But Nurkic is interesting. He could have a good night tonight against New Orleans. And that's gonna have a lot of points in that game. I actually kind of like Harry Giles too. I don't know. He's not someone who's popping off the charts. He's not starting. He's coming off the bench. His upside's not amazing. I kind of like the matchup, and Philly's bench doesn't have many good big men, so we'll see how Harry can do when Joel's on the bench. Cool. That does it for me today. I'll be back maybe tomorrow, but definitely Monday. Happy Friday, everybody. Have a great day. Good luck tonight, and join RotoPros.com if you want to hear some more, get some skeletons and hear some actual, some more personal insight onto who we like and why later on as we get closer to lock. Thank you. Have a good one.